welcome to another live edition of Make It Fair. My name is Harmon Dash, along with my colleague Tracy Bender and our founders, Doctors Ida Patel and Stuart Phillips, always shining a light on money's corruptive force on our democracy. And today we want to talk about mail-in voting. It was something that was a big discussion last year as we were heading up to the 2020 elections. We certainly spent a lot of time last year highlighting the benefits and why it was a great way for Americans to cast their vote. Certainly, most of us were home a lot last year. We were in the middle of the pandemic. We're still dealing with the pandemic as it happens to be. But last year, nobody was going anywhere, and we had a major election coming up. And suddenly there was a lot of infighting as to whether or not voting by mail was a secure way to vote. But it has been time tested for decades as a great method to ensure a greater participation of Americans, a more informed electorate. It is less expensive to run than your traditional polling places, and it's got lots of security measures as well. But for some reason, a lot of people in power did not want the American public to have the ability to vote by mail last year, and there was a huge fight about it. And in fact, since the 2020 election, there have been lots of restrictive bills. Nearly 400 over 48 states have been introduced during legislative sessions. 16 mail voting restrictions in 12 states have made it through. They're going to make it more difficult for people to cast their vote by mail. And, we always think that the number one tool the electorate, our citizenry has against government corruption is our vote. But it seems like certain people in power would prefer us not be able to do this one function of a republic that engages in a constitutional democracy. Isn't that right, Tracy?
Absolutely. And I'm sure that everyone will agree with me that we want a fair and safe election. I want to know for sure that my vote is counted, and that there is no fraud. For me, a mail-in ballot has always given me that security. I'm sure y'all see Stuart's got his ballot, mail-in ballot, in his hand, and really quickly, Stuart, when you look at the laws that have already been passed, and I want you to know that there are 30 others that in 30 other states that have passed. One branch has already passed their House and are sitting in the Senate, and 30 others that are still in committees. So that there are more to come. But the things that are here, it shorten the window to apply for a mail-in ballot. Shorten the deadline to deliver a mail-in ballot, make it harder to remain on the absentee voting list, eliminate or limit sending mail ballot applications to voters who don't specifically request them, eliminate or limit sending mail ballots to voters who, I said that already, sorry all, restrict assistance in returning a voter's mail ballot, limit the number, location, or availability of mail ballot drop boxes. When you look at those, it hurts the people who most need mail-in ballots. Because if I don't get one, the reason I love it is because often there's stuff on the ballot that I didn't even know was going to be on the ballot. So it gives me a chance to do research before I cast my vote. But, Stuart brought up something beautiful when he got his ballot.
Well, I got this in the mail, and no one complained about it. And I've been getting one of these for every election for 10 years. I'm 85. When you're 65, you can get them automatically in Louisiana. All of a sudden, last year, it became a problem. And the people who were losing the election made up all these reasons why mail-in ballots were not good. As Tracy said, they've been doing this in Florida forever. And the Trumps voted by mail in Florida. And believe it or not, they said, well, everything's okay in Florida. It's just in those other states. So what we wanted to do is reinforce that the reasons that those that legislation has been proposed has nothing to do with what they say. It has to do only with trying to depress the vote of the people. Mail-in ballots are cheap, they're safe, there have been almost no fraud, and the fraud that has been, the one famous case that has been, was a Republican congressional
Candidate, yeah.
candidate. And we wanted to remind you all of this. Here we are, we're going into our off term elections. In Louisiana, we're having our gubernatorial, our mayor's election. We're having lots of other things on the ballot. No one is making a peep. Next year, when we go in to the Georgia senatorial election, you're going to hear how bad making ballots are.
Mail-in ballots, yep.
It's all a lie. They just don't want the people to vote who will vote against them. They have looked at it and they have said there are more people using mail in ballots voting Democrat than Republican, so they want to change it.
Well, and let me tell you, traditionally in Florida, mail-in ballots were the GOP darling. When you look at Florida, folks are older, they're more conservative. It's a place where a lot of folks go to retire, and so it was a GOP darling in Florida. And even now, they're not trying to. They're one of the states that's not like shortening the window, but they're suddenly making it harder to get on an absentee ballot. They're one of the ones that created laws limiting the number, location, and availability of mail drop-in boxes, mail-in drop boxes. And it's going to be interesting to see, because I'm sure that as we see how that plays out, it's going to be interesting to see where they're limiting the boxes.
So the reason we had this is to remind everybody that the furor about mail-in voting, the furor about election security, all of the propaganda you hear about that is only about depressing the vote of certain people so that the people in power can stay in power. So when you hear that, disregard it and say what we say at Make It Fair. Everyone should be able to vote. It should be a simple, open, legal process, and it should be available to everybody.
And let's note that, going back to Florida as an example, when the GOP first started, when it was a GOP darling in Florida, Democrats were shouting foul. Democrats were saying, "Oh no, this is horrible," and because there weren't a lot of Democrats using mail-in balloting. Well, then when Democrats caught on and said we can do this too, then suddenly it became evil. So either side, like you said, Stuart, whoever's in power wants to hold on to power, and they need a boogeyman. And
yeah, we at Make It Fair are not a partisan organization, and we are not suggesting that only one party likes to remain in power. What we want to do is make sure that everybody has a chance to vote.
Yeah,
no
right.
matter,
We should be in power, the voters.
the voters should be in power. So when you hear the protestations, which you will hear next year, I promise, just remember what we said. Let everyone vote, and we'll have a true democracy.
You're not hearing about those complaints much this year because, as Stuart pointed out, it's 2021. We're not getting any major coverage of any elections. And it's clear that voting by mail secures democracy, makes sure that everyone gets the opportunity to vote. And again, the benefits are off the chart. So if our elected officials are out there telling you that your path to voting is corrupt, you have to ask yourself, why don't they want you to vote? We think there's a chance that they think your vote is going to kick them out of power and put us back in power. But we at Make It Fair think that that's the way it should go. Every person should be able to exercise their right to vote. It is our number one tool against government corruption. Make It Fair. My name is Harmon Dash, and for Tracy Benders, Doctors Ida and Stuart Phillips, we thank you for watching Make It Fair.
And if you like this, share it. The more people that understand, the better chance we have of having a functioning democracy.